In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the rest and spread operators, also added in ES6. Well, first of all, let's start with an example. Let's say that we have a function called add and that we want to add a few elements. For example, let's say that we have A and B. Now, simply, we want to return A plus B. That's it. Now, if we go ahead and type console log, we're going to call the add function and let's pass 2 plus 2. As you can see, the output is 4. But what do you think would happen if we add additional parameters like 2, 2, and 2? Now we have 5 times 2. What do you think would happen? If I save this, you can see the output is still 4. So, what if we don't know how many parameters should our function take in? Like in this case. It can be 2, it can be 5, or it can be 10. How can we make our function accept as many parameters as we want? Well, to do that, we can use the rest operator. The syntax is simply 3 dots, and then in there you can say arguments or something like that. So you use the rest operator on the arguments. Now, first of all, let's type console log and see what our arguments are. I'm going to comment out this return A plus B. As you can see, we get back an array of all the arguments we've sent in, 5 times 2, in an array. Now, we can use that to actually do something with it. In this example, we could use the reduce method we learned before to sum these numbers up. So, to do that, we're going to do return, and then we're going to say arguments dot reduce. In there, if you remember, we have the accumulator and the current value, so we can say val. What we have to do now is simply add the accumulator plus the value. That is it. Now, if we save this, you can see we get back 10. And if you keep adding parameters, all of these are going to add up. Our function can take as many parameters as you want to pass into it. The only thing you're learning in this lecture is how to use this rest operator. If you forgot how to use the reduce method, I would suggest going back to the reduce array method in arrays in detail section. But with that said, that's it. This is the rest operator. Now let's move to the operator that's just a bit more useful. It's called the spread operator. Some people also call it spread syntax. And you can use the spread syntax if you have an array. So let's say that we have an array of numbers, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, let's say. Now, of course, if you do a console.log and then you console log those numbers, you're going to see an array where we have 5 numbers in. But what if you wanted to take each and every value outside of this numbers array and simply console log it as such? For that, you can use the spread operator. Dot, 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 numbers. That's going to take the numbers outside of the array and then console log them. Now, in this situation, it's not all that useful, but let me show you a few cases where this could be extremely useful. For example, let's say that you want to add a number to the numbers array. That would be numbers.push, right? And with that, let's push the number 6. Now, if we console log the numbers, we get back 6. But this means that we mutated the original array. You can see we changed it, and then we console logged it. In React or in other frameworks, this is not a good practice, and you won't be able to mutate your variables. This is not optimal. So, what is the other way to update the value of the numbers, but not to mutate it? Well, you can do it using the spread operator. You can do something like this. Const new numbers is equal to a new array, and then in that array, you're going to spread all the numbers from the original array, and you might have guessed it, you're going to add a comma and add the new number. Now, what happens is numbers array wasn't changed. We can see that if you console log it here. But if you console log new numbers, you will be able to see that that array is indeed changed. So here's the trick, how to know if some methods are mutable or if they're not. If you have to put something on the left side of something you're doing and then make it equal to that, that means that you're not mutating the original array, because you're storing it in a new variable. But if you notice, with numbers.push, we had nothing on the left side. We were simply adding it, which means changing it. You don't want to do that. So in this case, what we're doing is we're creating a new array right here. We are spreading the numbers, Spreading the numbers means taking out all of the values from the numbers, like this, putting them here, and then simply adding what we want to add to it. That's it. And that's going to create a new array and not going to change the original. You can do the same thing with objects. And I think we already talked about that while we were going through the section of reference versus value. Let's create an object, const object, and that's going to have something like name of John, and it can have an age of 25, for example. This is our object. Now, let's make a copy of that object, for example, object1, and then we want to make that equal to the object. So now both objects are the same. If I console log them, you can see object should be equal to object1, and they are. But what would happen if I changed one? So for example, I go ahead and change the object1 dot name to be equal to something like Jenny. You can see both objects changed. If you're not sure why this is happening, revisit the reference versus value section. But with that said, the goal here is to spread all of the properties from the original object, but inside of a new one. So instead of simply copying the object, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new object and simply spread all the properties of an object and then simply change the name to what we want or not do anything. We can do it like this and that's it. You can see now we have John and Jenny. Or you could also do it in one line, copy it, and then simply add a comma and change the name to Jenny. This is also going to work. Great. That's all that there is to spread and rest operators. Two really useful operators that also came in ES6.